where individuals, companies like ours come into play, and why they should be part of large corporations, small corporations, as an integrated department or business unit inside of them, to have those individuals who have that mindset, that think like that, and says, hey, let's do these checks and balances. I won't say we, I assume they're doing the checks and balances because that's just how I operate. But at the same time, I know on the flip side, that is not everyone's way of operating. And so that's why I say I think it's both. It's a behavior because it's something that they're not used to doing. They're not used to behaving a certain way. They're not used to operating in excellence. And it also depends on how they define that. And as we know, organizations, if they even define it at all, have different definitions of what that means to them. And so that's when our type of companies come into play to help educate them and bring that skill set to them, and even train them to be able to understand and operate moving forward, and understanding continuous improvement, change management. Like I mentioned, not even having a risk assessment, because that should have been able to highlight the what ifs. So when you look at what if this happens, what do we do in return? What if what if the site went down? What do you do in return?
Welcome to the Analytical Rewired, the best place to discuss various obstacles, limitations, challenges, behaviors, and how to overcome them in business. We deep dive into the complexities of people, processes, data, and technology, PPDT, adopting our focus to be either technical or creative expressions, and how to balance the two. The Analytical Rewired is brought to you by the MJW Group, a performance improvement and leadership development boutique management consulting firm that helps companies save time and money leveraging operational excellence. Our mission is to enable your organization to be more successful by refining overarching strategies into detailed plans to be implemented, generate creative and technical solutions for your operational challenges, augment and supplement your existing teams, and help you create processes that allow you to be more efficient with the resources you have. You can learn more about the MJW Group on our website at themjwgrp.com. Welcome to the Analytical Rewired. I am your host, Jennifer White, CEO of the MJW Group, and I have my co-host here with me, Sarah Ashley. How are you today?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Spring is here, finally, if you really think spring is here, but according to the calendar, it is.
Outside, not so much. It hasn't gotten the memo.
Yeah, it didn't get that memo yet. But we did get a great memo today because we have a very special guest with us. She is an affiliate of the MJW Group. She's a great friend, great collaborator, and I'm so excited for you all to hear what she has to say and talk about. And with that, I'll introduce our guest, Arian Hargrove. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Why don't we jump in, Arian, with you letting the audience know, what do you do, what's your superpower, and what you're here to talk about today?
Yes. So greetings, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are tuning in from. I am Arian Hargrove. I am the CEO of Love for Systems. And what we do at Love for Systems is we help reduce and remove all that chaos, all that inconsistency. We look at doing the consistency for operating in operational excellence and helping you improve your life so you do not have to spend all that time in your business.
Love it. Love it. And I think the topic that you're going to touch on today, of course, coincides with both of our organizations and why we're here in the marketplace, why we exist. I will say on the podcast, we focus on the right brain and left brain aspects of behaviors and why people do the things they do. So there's some reasoning to the madness of why operational excellence is important. I know sometimes people who are more right brain with that creativity, they don't necessarily see how their creativity can become structure, can turn into operational excellence, and can really protect what it is that they're doing in their everyday lives and in their business. It's not just the technical, logical, analytical things that we put structure on in our business, but how we do that, our flavor, our own sauce, right? That bands us to the creativity parts of our brain and how we operate and behavior as well. So I want to touch on all those points. I want to give you some time to talk through some examples or some things that you've been witnessing out here in the marketplace recently as well. So why don't you kick us off with maybe giving some examples of operational excellence, Arian?
Absolutely. Whew. Okay.
She's like, where do I begin?
Right. So I'm a huge advocate of a couple things. I'm a huge advocate of putting processes and procedures in place, understanding what is supposed to happen, when it's supposed to happen, by whom, and so forth. So as we say, a good procedure, a good SOP, standard operating procedure, is like a good recipe, or even like a great recipe. And that also includes, having those checklists in place, making sure that you know what's supposed to be happening before and after and during and all around, basically. And so as we all, in both of our spaces, we come across a lot of examples, a lot of companies, pulling their hair out at the end, wanting to help with certain things. And so a great example that I'd like to share is an opportunity. We have companies that collaborate. And so when you have a small company collaborating with a large company, there should be some handshaking that occurs on who's going to do what and when and so forth. And especially when you're looking at launching a product that is going to be the face or that product for each organization. So you want to make sure that everything is working hand in hand, everything's working on time. If you're going to have some links in place that are going to send customers to certain places to purchase, you want to make sure all of that stuff is working. So we always want to test those things out. So that's where it comes into play as far as knowing what each individual, what each department, what each company is supposed to be working on, and also having those things tested out. So there's a great case study that just happened recently here in my area on a special day, and there was a launch, like I mentioned, between these two companies. So there was marketing that happened. The marketing displayed what the prices were going to be on those products. The marketing also shared what time everything was going to drop because it was a special day for this area. And so when that day came, there was so much that just happened. It was just kind of like you throwing a ball at a block, like a triangle block. You remember back in the day when we used to build blocks, or for those of us who remember blocks, we would, build the blocks, and, you get that block built up like a teepee, and then you always want to knock it down and start all over. That's how I felt this launch went. It just like crumbled in pieces because there were so many moving pieces that didn't talk to one another. So those moving pieces included the marketing. The marketing stated the price for what the product were going to be sold at. And let's even take a step back. It said when it was going to be released. So what happened was the product that was going to be released in 3 different locations. I don't know why, but okay. So that right there to me already kind of, displays some opportunity for things to be missed. So when you have a product launch occurring at 3 different places at 3 different times of the day, if you're tight, your systems are not tight and they're not talking to one another, there's going to be that opportunity. So that's where the risk assessment comes into play that should have happened behind the scenes prior to the launch. So the launch was supposed to occur at one time of the day at a physical store. That store opened up before the physical launch was supposed to occur. But of course, somehow the communication didn't get handled to both individuals. So people were standing in line. People were able to go in and purchase the products before they officially were supposed to be released. And so then that place sold out probably in a matter of half an hour before they were supposed to even sell the product. So then you start to see customer complaints from that because people now are arriving at the time they thought it was going to be released for sale, and they get there and there's no product left. So they're like, what happened? Like you said, so it's good for the business, right? They sold out, but from the customer perspective, now you have customers complaining because they're like, well, you told us it was going to happen at this time and it didn't. So again, those are some of the things that could have been, shared manually, put together in a procedure that says, okay, this is who's doing what, and then communicate it to those companies that, hey, do not release these products, whether you don't put them on the floor at a certain time, whatever the case may be, or maybe if you even just block them off so customers can't get to them who are already in the store shopping for other stuff. But now you've put this, bad taste in customers' mouths who have driven to this location to purchase these products at this time that you stated they were going to do. So that's only one piece of that example.
Wow.
So that's how the day started out.
Yeah.
And it was downhill from there, because then there's the second opportunity was a link to be sent to the list. So anyone who signed up for their list, like their email distribution, their text messages, we're going to get a link to now be able to purchase on the online store, which was a totally different store. And so now you have another store involved, and now there's this link that goes out. And so being part of that list, you click on a link and the link takes you to a blank page. So first and foremost, the link wasn't sent out at the time they stated it would be sent. Then you get the link, and then it's about 10 minutes later, you click on the link and there's nothing there. So like I always tell customers, don't make it hard for people to pay you. If they're coming to your site, they know that they want to buy your products and your services. And now you're sending something out as a promotion and they can't even get to the product. So now they have to search for it. So for some customers, they're not going to do that. And then for your true ride or die ones, they'll, figure out how to search for it. And then it takes them, another 5 or 10 minutes, which is not, they're now looking at the customer journey. So there's all these moving pieces when it comes to operational excellence that you want to make sure are talking, having that, shaking that hand, and being able to come together so your customers don't have that painful experience that happened in this case study. And there's even more. But I would just stop at that building because of the fact that then once you find the product on that online site, the product was double the price. So the marketing material stated, let's say, for example, it's $50, but then on the website, it was $100. So now you have customers complaining in regards to that as well, going to the small business page and leaving comments on their social media. And then you have the business owner now who's kind of hands off and was like, well, hey, it's not my site, but it's your product. I don't have anything to do with that. But in actuality, you do, because even though it's not your site, it's still your brand. So you should care about what your brand does, what it looks like, and how it's being presented, especially during a collaboration. So those are some of the things that happen. Those should be some lessons learned, because you want to be fully involved, whether it's on your site or not. You still want to take some accountability and some ownership because it's still your brand. So it's just like doing an affiliation with a company, for example.
Right.
As an affiliate, you still want to make sure your product is being presented properly and it's representing your brand. So you come to an agreement on a price, and then that's the price that, the affiliate chooses to sell, but double the price. We're like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
How much more are y'all trying to profit off of this? And that's not what was advertised. So you have so many of those moving pieces that fall under the umbrella of operational excellence.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of fumbles. I use a lot of football references. So I love to talk about setting up the play, right? Let's do a run through of the play, the testing, right? And let's actually execute the play and figure out if it's working or not. So it sounds like there was a lot of instances and opportunities to be proactive, preventative maintenance, terminology that we tend to use in our profession, to be ready, right? You can never be ready, but all you can do is just do a lot of checks and balances before being ready, right? And it sounds like there was a lot of opportunities that was missed in order to have that in place. And I think sometimes I try to tell people this a lot. They're like, oh, well, you guys, you work with large companies. We're so small. We don't have a need for that. And I was like, it doesn't matter if you're large or small. We see this happening on large enterprise scale, like clients that
Absolutely.
in organizations that just don't set up the play. For some reason, we like to just solution and go to the end and feel like if I just do this and just launch, everything is going to be great. And it's not, because the customer journey that happens from the time they become interested in you and your product or your brand, you're on watch all the way until you launch something, especially because it's holding your own self accountable. Hey, we're going to release this product at this time. We're going to do X at this time. We're going to be here at this time. And any time during that customer journey that the customers feel you aren't credible to what you're saying, you're accountable to what your own policies and procedures. For me, I'm done.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Absolutely.
And it even sounds like after the fact too, even after the customer journey, even after the launch, they're also being looked at as well to see how they handle,
correct.
If something goes wrong or if it goes very well. And, it's almost more important to see how a company handles an issue of that nature, when there are clearly so many people upset about the process that they just went through. And, it's very telling if at the very end, this company is hands off, kind of like, oh, it wasn't us, but it was though. So, it's going to put a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, and then it's going to, affect the rest of your launches from there on out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to your point, Jennifer, about the size of the company, it doesn't matter because one was a huge, large enterprise and the other one was a small company. So and depending on who you look from, it was the large company that made the oops, not the small company. So as we know, we see it all the time. So there is no definition or no small versus large and it only happens here, there. No, it happens everywhere, unfortunately. And it goes back to not having certain things in place, not having those processes and procedures in place, not having those checks and balances. And that's what leads to this, hiccup in a launch or any type of, part of your organization or company as you operate. It happens a lot. It happens all the time. So
would you say, Arian, that's part of maybe it's just not knowing how to execute on these things? Or do you think it's part behavior? Like there's not enough habits, there's not enough hurt, right, to understand how to avoid this again? What do you say that, in your opinion, that results from?
I think it's both. I think it's both because until you felt the pain, you won't know, right? And you won't think anything is wrong. So it's unfortunate that it has to go that far. And that's where individuals, companies like ours come into play and why they should be part of large corporations, small corporations as an integrated department or business unit inside of them to have those individuals who have that mindset that think like that and says, hey, let's do these checks and balances. I won't say I assume they're doing the checks and balances because that's just how I operate. But at the same time, I know on the flip side, that is not everyone's way of operating. And so that's why I say I think it's both. It's a behavior because it's something that they're not used to doing. They're not used to behaving a certain way. They're not used to operating in excellence. And it also depends on how they define that. And as we know, organizations, if they even define it at all, have different definitions of what that means to them. And so that's when our type of companies come into play to help educate them and bring that skill set to them and even train them to be able to understand and operate moving forward and understanding continuous improvement, change management. Like I mentioned, not even having a risk assessment because that should have been able to highlight the what ifs. So when you look at what if this happens, what do we do in return? What if what if the site went down? What do you do in return? How do you communicate and get that back up and running? What if the page is blank? So for us, it's the obvious, but for individuals who are just constantly going and they're working in their zone of genius, they're not going to think of that. And that's why it helps to have that diverse team of always having someone on the team that's going to say, hey, hold on, let's check this first, or did we check this? So you got to have a system thinker on that team somewhere who's going to think of how the systems are communicating with one another. So that person that comes in and does that audit or that last, check and balance. Let's make sure all of this is working together. And based on the results of this, I can say that didn't happen.
Bars. Let's go home. We're done. All the bars, all the gems, all the nuggets. That's it. Let's just wrap it up. Wrap this up. Let's go.
Like that.
Mic drop. That's it. I mean, that's all it is. It's just, I think sometimes companies are missing that person. I don't know. I grew up in supply chain world, so I was always told when I was a planner, you are the quarterback for the team. It's up to you to get the ball. Make sure that I don't have to physically get the ball, but you need to ensure that ball makes it to the finish line.
Yeah,
and we score.
And get the field goal too.
Correct. A lot of
you gotta get 2 points.
A lot of teams are missing a quarterback. And sometimes the quarterback isn't always the captain, right? So this goes back to how many Indians and Chiefs do you have on your team? Like, who's the gatekeeper of making sure this is getting done?
And I put that under the behavior part, because that is to me, that's a behavior assessment. Who do we have that mentally, can think this way, that can make sure we're going to cross that line and cross it fully, not barely, where we get tackled at the inch before
the first yard line.
Right. Like we inches away. No, you want that person, that individual, that team that can come in and be able to make sure you get across it, you stay across it, and then you can move on to another field, another 100 yards, and do the same thing over and over and over. So that's where that being able to repeat something, because once you do a successful launch, you should be able to now mimic that and continue to do it over and over again. That rinse and repeat and reproducibility. We got a lot of R&R words that stand for that. But it all goes hand in hand. So it's so key to make sure you can do that. Right. And that's where things get lost. And then we like for companies to be proactive. And you made a point about, the plan. So you're designing what you want to do, you're planning it out, you're operating, and then you're making sure you maintain it and it stays in control, and then it's sustainable. And we know that framework, and that's why it's important to have those type of individuals with that mindset that can come in and help integrate that framework into the different areas of opportunity in the businesses.
Yeah,
and this is not just certain industries. This is for all industries.
Across the board.
And I think they're starting to see that more now, because the school systems are definitely looking into it now.
The state agencies as well.
Yes. And we know how archaic their systems are. So yes, I'm liking where the industry is going. I'm loving the fact that more industries are adapting and they're receiving and they're tucking it in. But it's been a slow uphill. I don't want to call it battle, but it's been slowly moving uphill. And I'm hearing more banking, all these different industries are finally receiving and accepting it and trying to implement it. As we know, there's more pieces to the pie that they're still missing, like change management. I think is going to be next, which I think is missing today, because they want to make the changes, but then they don't know how to make the changes effectively. There's that communication that's being missed. There's also including your I call them the front line, making sure those individuals are part of the solution, because they're the ones working with it hand in hand. So you want to make sure you're getting their input as well.
Another bar. I just think we're done here. I don't have anything else. I know.
I was like, oops, let me.
No, you're spot on, and that was one of the questions that we usually asked our guests, like, how have you seen the industry shift? And you just talked through that. Like, we are starting to see some of the long-standing organizations finally take heed to how, your process, your data, your technology, and what your people are doing. That has to align. If it doesn't align, you're not going to grow, Kodak. You won't be able to sustain where you are and continue to innovate. And I always like to use the example of Chick-fil-A, because they do it best like no one else. So
Mm-hmm.
does Disney World. But they have teams, they have OpEx teams, they have industrial engineering teams that focus on these things, the flow of people in the parts, the flow. Every Chick-fil-A now has a new driveway.
Yes.
Who would have thought that type of system would be put in place? I mean, we would have never even thought of that concept ever. And getting your food faster so you can get out of the queue. These are all innovative operational excellence mechanisms that was put in place derived from data that was collected, and Chick-fil-A constantly collects data. If you look on your receipt, they collect what car, your color car you're in.
Yep.
And then if you're in the app, they have data on you. So every time we put data in an app, guess what? Those organizations are utilizing that data to help better the customer experience. That's what it's all about at the end of the day, to keep you coming back and being a repeat customer.
Yes, that's it right there. That's where we
I get a bar.
You get snaps from me too. You get bars and snaps.
That is also a part of the conversation. We want to convince them, to educate them that data is so important, because that driveway, I think you short, coming us a little bit, because I think we would have figured it out if we had the data. So we would have been able to help Chick-fil-A with that one based on the data, because we see, how many, because you can just ride past one and see, like the lines, even with the additional driveways, their lines are still long.
Still there.
Still very long.
They still move along. Right. That's
right.
The whole point. They still know how to get it moving and keep them moving. And that's that efficiency that helps tremendously. And so they'll come up with something new, I'm sure, to be able to keep the lines from looking like they're wrapped around the corner. But their lines move faster with at least triple the capacity compared to like a Burger King. Burger King line just sits. It just sits. And you like, when are they gonna move?
Burger King is make to order. So it's a different business model, but they are completely make to order. They're not make to forecast.
So data. The data. That's a whole nother topic in itself.
Like, do we have time? How much time we got?
Arian, thank you for being with us today. I mean, you dropped a lot of gems. I mean, it's good to hear others reiterate this, because sometimes I feel like I'm on an island out here like, hey,
screaming into the void.
Why can't you see? I don't know. Help.
You're like, hello.
Over here.
I understand.
Even when I try not to, and it's weird, like being this way, because Marcus and I went on a cruise a couple months back. It was during Thanksgiving week, and we're just sitting there like, man, that line really moved. They really have this down to a T. Like, they're so efficient, and it's hard not to do that and just enjoy being on a cruise. I'm like, what is wrong with me? You're such a nerd.
I'm the same way. My son has to stop me. He like, Mom, take your head off. You're not working. And I'll be like, but it's just natural. Like, I'm like, you could have did that better, or this, and then I'll be like, I get paid for this, right? I'm giving you a free consultation. Because everywhere, doctors' offices are horrible. They're trying, but they're horrible. Right. That's where I give out the most free consultations, is at the hospital and the doctor's offices, because I hate waiting. And for 5 minutes, for you to see me for 5 minutes, but I waited 30 minutes or an hour to be seen for 5 minutes. Y'all got to do better. Like, my time is
processes. Take one from Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, they're measuring it. They're working on it. I know they are measuring. I went to a CVS Minute Clinic recently, and they've gotten, like, they're queuing. They text you before you get there, like, hey, fill out this paperwork ahead of getting here. Remember, we used to have to sit there with the clipboard when we got there to fill out things. Now it's electronic. So there's been little headway made in the healthcare industry. It's coming.
But I'm gonna have to be on the other side with that CVS, because CVS, when you got prescriptions and they text you, them texts be out of order.
They are.
I'd be like, I just picked it up. And you telling me I need to come still pick it up?
Or they'll just text you and they'll be like, one more day until it's gone. And
Right.
like, oh my God, I'm sorry. I'll get to it again.
Yeah, I was like,
Oh
so
my
your
gosh.
systems aren't talking to each other.
Right,
They're like,
right.
oh well, and I was like, that's okay. You're talking to the wrong person. They be like, oh well, ma'am, and no, it's okay. It's okay. It's all right. I appreciate I get the text messages. So yeah, it's hard to turn off our light bulbs.
Left brain.
Yeah, it's hard because everything can be done better. That like my tagline, everything can be. And yeah, it's just yeah, because I can't imagine what your cruise was like. Because I know y'all was like, that.
No, we actually thought they did a good job. They were short staffed. The ship wasn't at full capacity, but they did a great job interacting with the ports and having
Mhm.
it was a seamless experience. And like I was saying, as a customer, that's what you want because they want you to come back.
Absolutely.
So
Right.
everything has to be seamless. There are some hiccups, and we know it's been hiccups since COVID because people are short staffed. So they, as a customer, I can understand that, but don't make it a repeat offense. Like then I'm like, I'm out. But yeah, it was good. Everything was good. We had a great time.
I'm gonna just throw one more because I can keep talking. Customer service, they need help. They need help because I shouldn't talk to 3 people to finally get to the right answer. And then those 2 people gave me the wrong answer. So by the time I get to the 3rd person, I'm livid. So it's like, and now of course I done wrote down everything that those first 2 done told me, and now the 3rd person telling me something different, and so I'm questioning it. Which is it? How many days is this gonna take? Because your first person told me this, and I know you can go back in the system and see who I spoke to. The second person told me this, and I know you can go see who that is as well. Now you're telling me this. Please tell me what's the right answer. So yeah.
Status updates in the system. That's all I'm gonna say on that. Just keeping a rabbit trail can cut out a lot of that back and forth, but what do I know? I don't know anything.
Training. It's the inconsistent training as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because then that goes back to having those proper documents in place that helps reduce the training, the hand holding training, to where if someone new can go and refer to that document, they can see what they're supposed to communicate to the customer. It's going to take X amount of days for this type of request and so forth. But then maybe there's a lack of that information in the documentation as well. So those are where the gaps have to be filled. So there should be some data for these recorded calls that should tell you what's lacking, if any.
Correct. Blue sigh. Blue sigh. Yeah. I wish one day, but if everything was perfect, we wouldn't be here.
So. That is, you're right about that. So yeah, I'm gonna be quiet.
Arian, as we wrap up here today, is there anything you want to leave with the audience? I don't know if you have any strategy calls or consultations, how people can reach out to you. How do we reach out to you, and how do we connect?
All my social media platforms are the same, Love for Systems. And so I do currently have a group coaching coming up that I have not publicly advertised. So this will be the first time publicly advertising it, where it'll be 8 weeks. I'll take clients through pretty much what we talked about, looking at and understanding what their customer journey looks like, filling those gaps, getting them set up for the next 12 months, 3 years, and 5 years, and be able to put those plans together. We look at what their vision is, what their strategic plan is, what their operational plan is. We don't ever hear many companies talk about an operational plan. And then we take that and dissect it further and get those goals aligned to what's really going on in their business, set up those things so they can now move forward, and making sure they're operating and they're working on the right things that they need to be working on to be able to achieve those goals that they want. So that's pretty much the gist of it. But it'll be a lot of work. It's very intensive. There will be no just talking. I don't do that. We're going to be interacting. There's going to be hot seat, laser coaching, Q&As throughout the 8 weeks. And I'm just excited about it. I feel like it's an opportunity to help businesses really put those things in place so that they continue to scale and grow and get to that next level.
Awesome. Awesome. So we'll make sure to connect that in the show notes on how everyone can reach out to you. Thank you again, Arian, for being with us. We'll probably have you on again so we can talk through some more examples on how people can
we can talk
ready.
for days.
Yeah, exactly.
But thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Everyone, thanks for joining into this episode. Please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.